January 27, 2020. So I'll bring the...
Oh, hold on for a second. Before we do that, I need to read the motion for the proclamation.
Great, thank you.
So, be resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the attached proclamation declaring the week of January 27th through 31st, 2020 as Paraprofessional Recognition Week in Bloomington Public Schools.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of this?
But now she has to speak first, and then we can, then we can vote.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you, Chairwoman Corman, School Board Directors, and Superintendent Fujitaki. And what an honor it is for me to be able to recognize paraprofessionals this week. Being the Executive Director of Special Education, I work extensively with paraprofessionals throughout our district. And it's a great honor for me to be able to represent this tonight. And actually for us to take an entire week, we take every day of the school year way into the summer to really honor the work of our paraprofessionals. We would not be able to continue to do the good work we do for our students and families without them. So taking a week to really recognize them is wonderful for the governor to take that step for us. We have paraprofessionals, as you know, working with our students from early on, from early childhood, all the way through all of our schools to our 18 to 21-year-old programs, our transition programs. We are very grateful for the work that they do every day to provide support, guidance, and a friendly face to all of our students and families. Our paraprofessionals know our students and families very well and provide them with an important connection to school. And sometimes it's the most important connection to school that they provide for our students coming. They always know that there are people at school who will greet you in the morning for the start of the day and be there with you throughout the day or just check in as needed. A friendly face to send our students home at the end of the day. Paraprofessionals are an integral part of our students' and families' success at school. I want to thank each and every one of them for all that they do and every day to ensure that our students and families are supported and cared for throughout the work that they do and continue to every day. I really greatly appreciate the paraprofessionals in our district, so thank you. Thank you for taking this week.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? So, do we accept this resolution? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now come and give this.
She's running away from you.
Okay, next we have within public recognition. Is there anyone who wishes to address the school board on an item that is not on the agenda? Let's see, there's no one. Do we have any students who are here for government classes? We have 3. So I would like to invite you to come to the podium while I read this. A requirement of a 12th grade government classes is to observe a governmental meeting of some sort. Things that they might attend are city council meetings, school board meetings, courtroom proceedings, etc. The Social Studies Curriculum Guide identifies essential standards, one of which is to understand the role and influence of political processes and organizations by examining the role of interest groups, think tanks, the media, and public opinion, and the political process and public policy formation. We would like you to say your names, the name of your teacher, and the school.
I'm Marissa, and I go to Jefferson, and our teacher is Dorleen.
I'm Amelia. I go to Jefferson, and our teacher is Dorleen.
I'm Emma. I go to Jefferson, and my teacher is Dorleen.
Thank you. At the close of the session or after an hour, whichever is shorter, you can ask for a signature on the agenda from any of our administrative cabinet members right by the wall. Thank you. Okay, so next we have Minnesota School Boards Association's District Award of Distinction. So at the recent Minnesota School Boards Association Leadership Conference, the Bloomington School Board was presented with a District Award of Distinction, one of the only 5 districts in the state to earn the award this year. The award is given to school districts having a majority of school board members who have received 100 or up to 300 hours of MSBA training or advocacy credits. So this is the plaque that we received in recognition of the school board and its support and commitment to educational excellence through participation in MSBA board development programs. Bloomington 2020 District Award of Distinction.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And to
Director
piggyback on that, at the same MSBA Leadership Conference, our very own board chair, Nellie Corman, was presented with the President's Award. And this recognizes school board members who have completed 300 or more hours of MSBA meetings and activities. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to the whole board for this very valuable award. Okay, so next we have our student school board representative reports. Would you like to start? Ali.
I'm Allie. I'm from Kennedy High School. So we have PTSA tomorrow night on the dangers of vaping at 6 p.m. At the Kennedy Media Center. We are hosting the Bloomington Gold Show Choir Competition this Saturday, which is our annual show choir competition. Rig is performing at 10:40 p.m., so come to that. It's really fun. They'd really love your support. Winter Spirit Week is coming up on February 18th through the 21st with our informal snowballin' dance, because the 21st is the second Battle of Bloomington boys basketball game. I will get to the first one later in my report. Parent-teacher conferences were really well attended last Thursday night. The Battle of Bloomington basketball game happened on Thursday, and it was a big conference win for the Kennedy Eagles over the Jefferson Jaguars, 52-51. It was a great game, We're really proud of that. And I think it would be fun to note that Shante and I won the Bloomington United for Youth Individual Recognition Awards for speaking out and advocating on this board. So thank you for Tom for nominating us for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Shante?
Unfortunately, I don't have that much so I don't have a lot planned for my report other than last week was senior night for the boys swim meet, and that's pretty much it. Nothing really is going on at Jefferson right now that's very interesting. I did go to the Battle of B-Town game, and it was very intense, and it was a really, really good game. Kennedy Eagles did a great job. They deserved that win. Maybe Jefferson can be some underdogs and beat them at the Kennedy House. I don't know. That's
Okay,
it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And during our meeting, if our students need to leave because of commitments that they have, then you might do that as well. Thank you. Next, we have approval of Part A of our agenda. Part A is board business, personal actions, field trips, contracts, agreements, and finances. Is there a motion to approve Part A?
So moved. Second?
Any questions regarding Part A of the agenda? Discussion? No? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have Part A, and then we move to Part B of our agenda. The first item is the bid award Valley View Middle School Mechanical Improvements Phase 2, and we have Rod Sitkovich, Executive Director of Finance and Support Services. Is there a motion to approve?
I guess I'll read it. Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 accepts the following 20 bids for mechanical improvements, Phase 2 at Valley View Middle School. 1, Martin's Benny Construction Company, Minneapolis, bid of $659,000. Number 2, Construction Systems, Inc., Maple Plain, Minnesota, bid of $71,374. Number 3, Red Cedar Steel Erectors, Inc., Menominee, Wisconsin, bid for $44,900. Number 4, Killington Construction, Inc., Minneapolis, Minnesota, bid for $409,000. 5, Central Roofing Company, Minneapolis, Minnesota, bid for $56,550. 6, Kendall Doors and Hardware, Mendota Heights, bid for $837. Number 7, Everson Glass Inc., Roseville, Minnesota, bid for $140,444. 8, Custom Drywall Inc., St. Paul, Minnesota, bid of $99,895. Number 9, Superset Tire and Stone, Plymouth, Minnesota, bid for $200,000. 10, Sonus Interiors Inc., Golden Valley, Minnesota, bid $85,000. 11, Floors and by Beckers Inc., St. Cloud, Minnesota, bid of $88,900. Number 12, Steinbrecher Painting Company, Princeton, Minnesota, bid of $124,900. 13, Olympic Lockers and Storage Products Inc., Minneapolis, Minnesota, bid of $114,012. 14, the Center Stage Manufacturing Company, Sauk Central, Minnesota, bid of $38,500. 15, Seating and Athletic Faculty Enterprises in Ellendale, Minnesota, bid of $28,636. 16, Peterson Sheet Metal Inc., Bemidji, Minnesota, bid of $2,955,000. 17, Siemens Industry Inc., Shoreview, Minnesota, bid of $426,000. 18, Summit Fire Protections Company, St. Paul, Minnesota, bid of $398,800. 19, Bloomington Electric Company, Bloomington, Minnesota, bid of $989,000. And 20, Bloomington Electric Inc., Bloomington, Minnesota, bid of $70,000.
Okay, Mr. Sitkovich.
What, the second?
Oh, sorry. Any second?
Second?
Thank you.
Chair Corman, Superintendent Fujitaki, board members. This is the final phase of the deferred maintenance project that has been happening at Valley View Middle since a year ago, last May. This is the process to finish up some of the things, and as we broke it up into kind of 2 phases, the majority of the projects were in the first phase. This is the second phase to be completed before the start of school next year.
Okay, are there any questions? With no questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this resolution passes. Thank you. Next, we have Associate Membership Intermediate number 288, and we have Rad Sitkovich and Jennifer McCanter.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Be it resolved, the School Board of Independent School District 271 as follows. Number 1, the Independent District number 271 authorizes the superintendent or designee to apply for associate membership in Intermediate 288. Number 2, that upon the approval of the associate membership request of Independent School District 271 by the Intermediate District Governing Board, said associate membership in the Intermediate District shall begin July 1, 2020. Number 3, this agreement limits Independent School District 271 obligation to only the direct cost of students attending Intermediate District 288. As an associate member of Intermediate District 288, Independent School District 271 is not a voting member of Intermediate District 288 and therefore is not bound by the terms of the Intermediate District 288 Joint Powers Agreement. Independent School District 271 neither pays for nor builds equity in property, debt, or other assets or liabilities of Intermediate District 288.
Second.
Chairperson Corman, directors of the school board, and Superintendent Fujitaki, Rod Zikovich and I bring this forward to you, this resolution forward to you for consideration to look at us being able to expand out our continuum of services for our students within special education services, particularly when we're looking for the most significant level of need for students and really finding an alternative to being able to place those students in a more quicker fashion in place of what we've had to the last couple of years. We've been on waiting lists, and we've been long-term waiting for students to get placed into programs that they need or programs that are built out, designed for them. And in joining this associate membership with Intermediate 288, it expands out our opportunities to have additional placement options for our students when they're needing it.
Are there any questions? Director Sorum.
Just a few a few additional details about this, that the fact that we don't have capability here in 271, we had to seek elsewhere, and our normal relationship with 917 didn't have the capacity to help us either, so we had to seek other avenues in order to find the necessary support for this. And because of the particular categories that the students fall in, there was only a couple opportunities or options for us to do it. And Intermediate 288, with its arrangement of just as an associate, filled the bill, and so we were able to do this. And this is just a formal background and resolution to join them as an associate member to satisfy the needs of our students here from our district.
Okay, Director Beebe.
I found this very encouraging because I was actually in a special ed class last week, and they were telling me about a student who they've been waiting for services for that student, and the difficulty it has been to find the right placement. And so I can see that you're doing due diligence to serve our students, and I know a student will benefit from this, and I'm very thankful because it's been hard on the staff to meet that student's needs. They've done it very sacrificially, and they've done a great job, but they know that student needs more. And so I just want to offer a huge thank you for pursuing this option. I always feel as though you are doing a good job looking out for all of our students. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? So, Director Bennett.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. So, one, how many students do we currently have going to 917, and how many do you anticipate going to 288?
I'll be able to give you the exact numbers that we have going to 917. It's around 35, between 30 and 35 students currently that we have going there. And that's from kindergarten all the way, well, we don't have any kindergarten students there, but it's all the way from elementary, early elementary through our transition program. And going to 288, we have very few currently there. I'm not anticipating it to be a large number, but at this moment in time, I'm not sure. We are working in concert with the director and superintendent from 917 as well as 288. So we really are keeping in mind both of those relationships.
And I know that 917 is going through a huge growth, and so they have a lack of availability, and they really can't keep up with demand. But if the time comes where they do have space, are we going to transfer those kids that are 288 and put them into 917, or I don't know if it's an individual basis. I don't know if you can speak to that at all, or.
Yeah, it really would be an individual basis. That decision would be one thing to look at, and I don't know if maybe if you had geographically where we're located, 917 is to the east of us, right, and 288 is to the west of us, and almost exactly the same geographical distance, right, from where we are here in Bloomington. If we're able to provide those supports closer to home, we most certainly want that to happen. And so we really try to choose what's closest for that student as to where they physically live, and then also what type of a program is needed for them. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do this because there are backlogged and there's waiting lists, and someone who's taught in site-based programs waiting for placements. I mean, kids that are inappropriately placed can really disrupt your program. So getting them the support they need as soon as possible is beneficial. So I think it's a good arrangement to have.
Okay. Thank you. Director Sorum.
And we provide the transportation to those intermediate districts from our buildings.
Correct.
All those in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes. Thank you. Next, we have revised policy 419, tobacco-free environment, possession and use of tobacco, tobacco-related devices, and electronic delivery devices.
Well, before we get into that, could I just
Yes.
wanted to take a moment to kind of explain the whole policy review process, because we have a couple of new board members, and just for the listening public, I was going to channel my inner Jim Storm and speak from a historical perspective. I guess I've been here long enough now, I can speak of historical perspectives. But when I first came to the board 6 years ago, we didn't have a policy committee. We used to do policies, they would come to the board, they were already done by administration. There was very little assistance with the school board at all. And some of us newer board members thought that we need to involve the school board more, because one of our key functions as school board members is creating policy. That's right there with hiring and supervising the superintendent, and operational oversight is doing policy, and we really were advocating that to administration. So, and also back then, it used to come to the board and we'd have to read it 3 times. So each policy would come 3 different times. So the first read, you might have some edits, you might have a little bit of conversation, then it'd come again, the second time, more conversation, the third time. So if we do 20 policies a year, it was like 60 resolutions. So we were spending 30, 45 minutes of every board meeting just doing policy. So moving to the policy committee gives board members that are on that committee a much more collaborative environment where we can speak in small groups with the 1 or 2 administrators, and we can ask questions and make changes to the policies before they even come to the board. So, and since we're having that more collaborative situation, we don't need to have it read 3 different times at the board meeting, because we already have board input and board assistance and everything. So currently, the policy committee, I'm the chair on that committee, and we have Director Storm and our newest member, Director Starks over there. So I just wanted to take a minute to explain that. And now someone can read a policy.
Thank
So I can
you.
take a break from talking.
Would someone like to read?
I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Be resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves revised policy 419, tobacco-free environment, possession and use of tobacco, tobacco-related devices, and electronic delivery devices.
Second.
Second. Go ahead.
Yes, it's me again. I'm just going to stay here tonight and talk. It may seem a little strange that it falls under special education. I also oversee all of health services, and so because of health services, this policy falls under our guidance. We did, and thank you, Director Bennett, for the overview, because we did. We met with many committees prior to this and many different stakeholders to really look at reviewing this policy, and this policy in particular because of the nature of looking at tobacco-free environment to include the e-cigarettes, any of the vaping devices, really taking that in consideration. We've been reviewing this policy for almost a year and working with our Bloomington Public Health, working with our health departments to really make sure that as we go through this, we have added language around specific device use, around specific types of tobacco, and around vaping to be really particular about what is impacting our students now. Okay, so as you read through that, you will notice that there has been some change of language to add in some additional components that the Department of Health had requested us to look at and review. We have added those. We've also added an addendum to the policy to lay out what we will do when there are students or staff that are in violation of the policy. Actually, it's students violating the tobacco policy. So we've added that in there too, and have been working closely. Hannah Hatch, who's our supervisor for health services, is with me tonight, and the two of us have been working closely with our all of our principals, actually, as well as our alternatives to suspension program, to look at how do we include this educational component to the work that we're doing around the tobacco-free and vape-free environment. Any questions?
Questions? Comments? Director Storm.
I would just add that if you look at the dates at the top of this, or when the resolution, or when it was adopted first, and then it was revised and adopted on tonight's meeting, January 27th, a lot of our policies have gone through extensive research through the Minnesota School Boards Association, as well as our own legal team, because sometimes there's state statutes involved and sometimes there isn't. And as we review these periodically, some of them are mandatory to be modified or reviewed every year. So as the committee meets and discusses some of this, we have a lot of questions that we ask at the time of the review. That doesn't necessarily mean when it's presented to the board that the board should just accept it. The total board should just accept it. We hope you all will, because we've already done some work. But at the same time, if there's anything in there that's confusing or need to be addressed. That's why we bring it to the full board and the experts who have helped revise.
Any other comments or questions? Director Beebe?
I think this is really important. Both Nellie and I were at the Association of Metro School Districts when they were talking. Were you there too, Maya? About and talking about the whole vaping epidemic, and so I feel like this is something relevant and applying to the epidemic that started in the incredible dangers that exist because of it. I'm wondering if you can tell us what the involvement of vaping is at our schools, and how at risk do you see our students?
Yeah, I can answer that. So without giving you specific numbers or names or anything, but I think it does dramatically impact our students throughout the district. We are well aware that just like all districts in the area, we have students who are using and have access to it. And we worked really hard with Bloomington Public Health to start really managing this, and this policy is a part of that, and the program for discipline following being caught is part of that. But we've been going in to do research to educate parents, staff, and students, and have all three areas to educate, because what we found initially is there was just a lot of lack of information and awareness around what it looks like, where it could be happening, when it could be happening. And so I know just recently speaking with some of our principals at the secondary schools, they've said that they have started to really crack down on it, knowing more of this education, having their staff educated more. And so they already have seen a decrease in it, which is great. But I do think this policy and having a program that when a student's caught provides education for that student around it will be really beneficial to our students as well.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was key, that we're not just coming and saying you shouldn't do that, but letting them know why. And I think it was a real eye-opener to me that, you know, the chemicals that are put into these vaping devices when heated become, like one becomes formaldehyde, and just how deadly that is. And so when they are able to understand that more and realize the risk to their bodies, that might make a difference. But then again, they're risk takers at this age, so they like, no, it won't affect me.
Yeah.
One thing that we have run into that I think for all of us on the larger committee that was including Bloomington Police Department, Public Health, and then folks from the school district is the age at which students are starting to use vape and the types of devices that they're bringing to school. We've had many presentations now, what to look for, what to see, and we're really seeing it at those early ages within middle school, even dipping into our 5th grades. And so we're really needing to get the education out, not just to our students and staff, but to our families. And how do we really start to roll that out? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Director Steiger. Since we're on this topic, I just want to remind everyone what our student next to me, Ellie Starks, I can't call you Director Starks because we have two Director Starks.
Representative Starks.
I'm sorry, what?
It's Representative Starks.
Oh, Representative Starks, okay. Student Representative Starks. I said Ellie Stark. Anyway, she mentioned that the PTSA at Kennedy tomorrow night is having this presentation. And I attended the one that was done here for the PTSA, and it is very good information. So I want to encourage families and other people that, you know, want to find out more about this to go to the presentation. I think that some of the families I saw, the items that went around, people were very surprised that the things that looked very much like a highlighter or whatever was actually for vaping. So I think that was rather eye-opening for many people when they saw the items being passed around at the presentation.
Okay, anybody else? Director Olson?
I was just going to mention that this topic has been very important to me because my son happened to have a lung collapse, and while it wasn't caused by vaping, the lung specialist asked if it was caused by, if he vaped, and he did not. It was not related to that, but because of that, it really opened my eyes to the fact that this is causing Really a very dangerous and painful condition. So he had to have surgery, and it can, it can lead to that. So I'm really glad that you are on top of this.
Thank you.
Director Starks?
So I just wanted to say thank you, because I think it's one thing to have policy in place on our website that, no offense, not a lot of folks will read, but to have this education piece along with it, I think is, for me, the critical piece. And there will be other policies tonight where that's also true, so I appreciate the kind of the two approaches, that we have the policy, but we also have the education, and the fact that all the stakeholders that you mentioned that were involved in this too. So it's not just, here's the silo of the school district saying, here's what we're going to do, but you've included other community members in that decision-making, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, definitely it's such an important item to bring to the board. As Director Bibi mentioned, during our AMSD meeting, we had the opportunity to hear from some people who have experience, experts in health and in education regarding the concerns, the growing concern of the vaping within the youth population in Minnesota. And the numbers, were very, very concerning to know that, starting from middle school, very early in middle school, and after that as well, and to see that the percentage of young people who are vaping right now, it's higher than the adults smoking. So very, very concerning. And the fact that there will be, in a few years, there will be more young people needing lungs than there are lungs available. So yeah, definitely very important item. Thank you. So those in favor of approving this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next one is revised policy 503, student attendance. Someone like to read this one, please? Director Bibi.
Be it resolved that the School Board District of Independent School District 271 approves revised policy 503, student attendance.
Second?
Okay. Thank you. Yes, then we have Jenna Mitchler, Assistant Superintendent.
Chair Corman, directors, Superintendent Fujitaki, we're happy to be here with you tonight. So we have a couple of policies we're going to be presenting to you. The first policy, which is around student attendance, is something that Dr. Molly Coyne has been working with me on. Dr. Molly Coyne is our new Learning Supports Director, and she has replaced Deidre Yarbrough, who used to be in that position. So I'm going to let her go ahead and tell us a little bit more about this policy.
So, policy 503, student attendance, is in statute. It's required that we have policy around attendance, as you might imagine. There was a tremendous amount of work done around this policy prior to my arrival. Many groups of people were involved in gathering thoughts about where we were with our attendance practices and where we want to be and how we want this policy to play out. I think as it's been revised, it now reflects an emphasis on positive relationships with families around attendance, supportive practices, clarifications around what is excused and non-excused, and clarifications around everybody's role related to attendance. So I'm excited that we get to move forward with all the great work that's been done around this.
Thank you. Questions? Director
My
Sorman.
first question or comment is, once again, this is one that hasn't been revised in a while, and so we're grateful for it. Secondly, could you pull your microphone a little bit closer to you so that we can hear? Some of us have it.
Thank you.
But the idea being that student attendance is another one of those issues that sometimes we take for granted and don't necessarily have a full policy. As I remember, this was quite redlined when we had reviewed it before, and so now that we have a nice clean version of it, it is really helpful to reread it in its entirety and understand exactly what's involved. So thanks again for doing all that work. And then it talks about the administrator's responsibility, the staff responsibility, and then it goes through all of the expectations for attendance. So thank you.
I was in an elementary school last week, and the nurse was very concerned because she had a student who is chronically tardy every day. The student can take the bus, but does not, which would allow them to get to school on time. And the parent would bring them to school instead, and they're significantly tardy. But her concern was that nothing is being done. So when I looked at this policy, I noticed that it didn't really have any teeth about that.
True.
And it said for reporting, it would be between the administrator and the teacher. But I'm wondering, what do we do for situations like that, where the child might miss the first 45 minutes to an hour of class?
So currently, the practices are pretty wide across our different schools around tardiness, both from the elementaries up to not counting the first half hour, all the way to high schools counting the first minute. So it's a pretty wide range of practices. I think we do need some procedures in place around that moving forward. And we do have a group of us working on some of those pieces, along with some revisions of letters to families and some of those pieces. Because no, we do not have very consistent practices yet around tardiness.
Okay.
We do know that they accumulate, and those minutes count as absences within our system. So those late minutes add up over time, and those do result in truancy letters going home. But you could still use.
I did notice it was crossed out that previously 8 tardies equaled 1 day's absence. So is that not the case any longer?
So some schools were using 5 tardies were equaling an absence, some were using 8. They're measuring tardies differently. Is it 1 minute or is it over 30 minutes? So there's a pretty wide range of practice, so we know we need to move into some procedures around that.
Okay.
Because we need to get that more consistent.
Yeah, so just to, I think I would add, Director Beebe, that reviewing this policy really gave us an opportunity to look for gaps in procedure, right? So not necessarily things that we would put in the policy itself, but things that we would add perhaps to student handbooks or to the way the practices are carried out in the buildings. And so it's been really helpful, and so thankful that Dr. Coyne is here to be working with our leaders around trying to standardize some of those practices.
I have one more question. If a student is excused, has an acceptable excuse for their absence in a school day, and they have an extracurricular activity afterwards, should they be, if it is excused for the school day, should it also be excused for the athletic or other drama or whatever activity that is requiring attendance?
So some after-school activities require that they've been in attendance during the school day, usually athletics pieces. So if you were sick during the school day, you'd probably have trouble in terms of your after-school activities being excused for that. But other reasons to be excused wouldn't necessarily impact extended day activities. So if the child had to go to a doctor's appointment, they wouldn't then miss their after-school activities.
What I'm saying is, if they were excused for that whole day and weren't going to be back in time for that activity, and it would be counted against them. For example, if you're not here for practice for football, then, it will be counted as an unexcused absence, even though it was excused for the day.
So the attendance practices within athletics are in a different policy than this one. So that policy would have to address that.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
One thing that is in this policy is that both our excused and unexcused absences count toward the 15-day drop. So if you're familiar with state statute around how many days a student can miss before we unenroll them from the district, it's just state statute. Unexcused and excused absences count as the same. And so that's something that's written into this policy.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Director Starks?
So this is the other policy when I mentioned education, dovetailing with policy. This was the other one I was thinking of with that, is just to make sure that we're doing a fair amount of education to parents and to students about what attendance looks like and the chronic tardies, and I have to say that that could be my child that they were referring to. We have that in our house. And so the other thing I wanted to mention is that, personally, we've been in the attendance arena in many ways in our family, and I'm very excited to say that Bloomington Public Schools has made some really significant strides from originally a couple of years ago. If you found yourself in this attendance situation, it was very much parent shaming. Now, whatever the communication you get is very much affirming of, we want your child here, what can we do to help? This is just, a way to, so it's a very different approach, and I gotta tell you that relationship between the family and the school is so much stronger with that approach than what had been in case previously. So I like that, and I'm glad to see that, and I know when we talked about this policy that we discussed that the policy being written in that more affirming way too is very important to me. So I appreciate that. I just want to then just keep continuing that with education and with the consistency of enforcement too that you were mentioning before. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Director Sturm.
And as you were talking, and as we reviewed, there is a wide variety of interpretation within the schools themselves. So administration might differ how they approach it, and with elementary, middle school, and the high school. A curious point comes up that there are, typically we have policies with their general statement of policies, but in some policies, there are no regulations per se. It's just general policies, and this is one of the lengthy ones that's just all in policy. We have a few of these other ones like that too. So is there anything, and maybe from the legal department or superintendent, that says we have to have regulations besides just the policy? Be it as long as a policy is, are there regulations that need to be included? They do not.
Everything right in the policy. So you could go that route, which means, of course, that the administration can't modify them without your
Approval.
which may be more work than you want. I don't know. You could go that route if you wanted to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so all those in favor of approving or adopting this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution has passed. Next, we have revised policy 506, student discipline. Director Steiger.
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves revised policy 506, student discipline.
Second.
Go ahead.
All right, great. So this is policy 506. This is being reviewed per MSBA, and it is by the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, has, with our agreement with them, asked us to review it annually as well. So that is why we're reviewing it again today. You'll notice that it was reviewed not all that long ago, and so we don't have a lot of changes here to propose. So the one I will just draw your attention to is at the very end of the policy, you'll see that we've added some language. It originally had said administrators, teachers were called out. Here we tried to widen the group a little bit by mentioning staff, students, parents, guardians, family, community members. We wanted to be really inclusive in this policy. So that is the one change that we're recommending at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? No questions, no comments. All those in favor in adopting this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Next, we have revised policy 514, bullying prohibition. Director Starks.
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves revised policy 514, bullying prohibition.
Second.
Thank you. So just as the policy before this, this is also a required policy by MSBA. We requested feedback from, as we have with the rest of the policies, parents, staff, students, and I just want to give a little bit of appreciation out publicly to our Bloomington, the Student Advisory Council, to the school board. They met about, I want to say 2 months ago, and we looked at this policy and some of the we talked about bullying specifically in our district, and they were able to give some feedback, and we just talked through procedures and things that they're experiencing in their schools. So that was both the middle school and high school level student groups, and that was really helpful, I think, for all of us. The changes that we are recommending here to this policy, again, not very many because this policy is reviewed fairly regularly. In this case, we're trying to, in general, keep the purpose statements quite concise for our policies. So you'll notice that the language that is listed under general statement of policy for A used to be under the purpose. And so we've moved that down into general statement to keep, again, the purpose just quite concise for us. The only other change that you'll notice is in the general statement of policy in A, we've changed the language just a little bit, slightly in the beginning there. The opening, we've added a safe and the word supportive environment. And so we did that because we know our district is really focusing in on safe and supportive schools. And so we wanted to make sure that we're naming that focus in our policy as well.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? No questions, no comments? Okay. I do have a question for you, and it relates to all the different policies that we have read before, that we have approved. And since those concern directly to the students, attendance, discipline, and the tobacco issue too, what is the plan now? What is the next step to review those with the students in the schools? Because I know that at the beginning of the school year, those are presented, those are shown to the students. But since now we have new additions, it has been revised, it would be very important, in my opinion, that we continue to remind the students that they are there. Because, like in the case of the tobacco, it can also be a piece of candy that looks like tobacco.
I think that's a really good point. And so, I'll add to that and say that our leadership learns when these policies are approved by you all as school board. And so then it should be at the front of their mind that these policies may have been updated. Some of them, like as you've noticed in the last two, nothing really significant that we necessarily need to talk about changes with the students about. But definitely if there are some significant changes, we'd want to be bringing that to the staff and students. And then we do know I'll just add with the vaping policy, the tobacco policy, we've been doing a lot of professional development this year, building up to this policy being approved. So it's not that necessarily today with the approval of the changes to the policy that we'll just all of a sudden start doing some work with students and staff. We've been throughout the year. In fact, every one of our sites has had a presentation to staff around vaping and just some of the look-fors and how to work with their students around education. But I think that's a really great point and something for us to definitely keep thinking about. That's good.
Yeah. Thank you. So all those in favor of adopting this resolution, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No, resolution passes. Thank you. Then the next one, we still get to keep you, Dr. Mitchell. New policy 721, Uniform Grant Guidance Policy regarding federal revenue sources. Would someone like to read the resolution, please?
Madam
Director
Chair?
Beebe?
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the new policy 721, Uniform Grant Guidance Policy regarding federal revenue sources.
Second.
Thank you for that. So this is another policy, just like the one that will follow it, 721.1, that Dr. Coyne has worked with me on. And so she's going to explain a little bit more, and I know you'll be reading another resolution for the next policy, but she may talk a little bit about both here. They relate very closely.
Great. So this is a required policy. It is a new required policy, and we've followed the MSBA model pretty much to a T. And we've done this because the model itself is pretty much the federal language around use of federal funds, right? So when you apply for a federal grant, the first 9 pages of any application, the language reads almost exactly the same as this policy. So it's guiding how we use those funds to stay in compliance with the federal regulations and requirements, which of course we want to do so that we don't misuse funds. So, so that's what the 721 is really about, that federal funds, how we use those federal funds to stay in compliance.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? No? So all those in favor of approving this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Next, we have revised policy 721.1, grants, formerly policy 623. Director Beebe.
Be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves revised policy 721.1, grants, formerly 623.
Second.
So this policy we already had in place, and it really guides how we determine to apply for and accept grant funding. This is a wider policy in that it's not just federal funds, but could include private grant funds as well. And the only addition that we added, the only addition that we included was the use of looking at the fund request to determine whether there is an ability to add management of grant funds to the application for the grant. And this is because you can end up managing a lot of grant money and not have put money in your own budget to manage those grants. Not all grant applications have that as an option, but when they do, we'd like the applicants to be looking at that and considering that. So that's the only addition to 623. The difference is that 623 sat with the 6s, but the 721 sits with grants, so we decided we should probably combine them, although one is really just for those federal funds, and this one is more guiding our grant internal process. We thought they should sit a little closer together.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? No? All those in favor of this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you, and thank you for your hard work in getting this done. Okay. So next we have for right size in the budget, middle school athletics, our superintendent.
Chair Corman, this topic is a report. This report is for the board and for the public's information. No board action is needed tonight. At the last board meeting, the board took action on all right-sizing and budget proposals except for the middle school athletics proposal. Administration, in response to the board's requests, continues to research other proposal options for middle school athletics. In the board packet is a sheet outlining 9 options that administration has and/or continues to research. Tonight, administration is not ready to present middle school athletic options. Administration is targeting a board meeting before spring break to present those options, and spring break is the week of March 23rd. Examples of right-sizing and budget options for middle school athletics are the possibility of starting a 7-12 athletic program, a BA partnership option, partnership with the city, intramural option with the Galaxy after-school program, and that's a middle school program, and a combination of any one of the above. So that's the status. Any questions?
Director Bennett.
Yeah, I just want to thank the administration for coming up with some options and studying this so we can try to save some element of middle school athletics for our students, so thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, very good. Thank you. Next, we have a request for school board action, televised board meetings. Someone like to read the resolution? Director Starks?
Be resolved that the School Board of Independent School District 271 approves the live telecasting of all school board meetings, regular and special, and study sessions by BEC TV.
Second.
Who got there first? Thank you. Any comments regarding this? Televised board meetings? Go ahead, Director
So can I
Starks.
just speak to this one since I brought this up, the first meeting that we had, the organizational meeting. So when I first started coming to board meetings about 10 years ago, when the boundary school changes was happening, all meetings, both regular and study sessions, were televised. And back then I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, something along those lines. So getting to meetings in person was tricky. So often I would either watch them at home or watch them later. And at the study sessions was where meat of the discussion happened. And so then when, fast forward a few years, when study sessions were voted to be removed from cameras, I felt like that was a missed opportunity for folks that can't personally be in our seats to be seeing a meat of the discussion with some issues that the school board is dealing with. So I'm very heartened to see this as an option, as a resolution to include study sessions to be not only streamed live, but also for review for later for the members of our public.
Thank you. No one else?
We're good.
Okay, we're good. So all those in favor on adopting this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes. Okay, next we have board member reports. Who would like to start?
I'll go ahead and start and get over with. So,
Okay, Director Bennett.
so we didn't have board member reports last time because our meeting went till like 10:25. So what I was going to say at that time was that I was the newly elected 917 rep. So I went to that meeting back in first Tuesday of January. But since I wasn't officially elected yet, I wasn't an official member. So I was more of a sitting and watching type thing. So I'm thinking next week is when I'll actually be sworn in. But sitting in that meeting, it was interesting how, because we were sitting here on Monday and we were doing right-sizing the budget and doing budget cuts, and they're going to that meeting, it's pretty much the complete opposite, where they're growing so fast that they're adding staff and they're adding buildings. And so the superintendent put out a plan of restructuring the administrative staff, adding many more levels of administrators to help facilitate the hiring of new staff and new buildings and all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting to be in two different boards at the same time and see the different challenges. And another thing I want to talk about was I think Representative Starks already said it about the Bloomington United for Youth. Next Tuesday at 6 p.m. is having their recognition ceremony, and I hope all board members can be there. I will have a 917 meeting at 5 o'clock out in Dakota County Technical College, so doubtful that I will be able to make it. So hopefully some of you other guys can be there. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Who's next? Director Starks.
So last week, I attended the Bloomington Public Schools Advocacy Council. So I was the former chair of that, but now being in this role, I've stepped down, and Dennis Kane is now taking over as chair for that group. And tomorrow night, with in collaboration with the League of Women Voters, they're hosting a legislative preview. I have a flyer, which I know doesn't really work on camera, but it's been widely publicized on social media through Peach Jar, et cetera. So all 5 of our representatives, our 2 senators and 3 representatives, will be there. It's at Fire Station 1 from 7 to 8:30. And it's an opportunity for our local legislators to kind of share their priorities for the 2020 session. Since it's a short session, it's going to be a quick one. And so they can talk about what their priorities are, and then there'll be a chance for audience questions, some related to education, some not. But I encourage anyone that can come and join to see what issues might be in front of the legislatures, especially those that are related to education that might impact Bloomington Public Schools. So come on by if you can.
I'm just following up on the Bloomington United for Youth. I will be attending that that volunteer recognition event on Tuesday, February 4th at 6 o'clock. And the other thing they have coming up in February, because I attended this committee meeting, is on February 22nd, they will have students providing concessions at the Home Improvement Fair, also at the Civic Plaza. I also attended the Special Education Community Advisory Council with Director Steigoff. And they have a lot of exciting things coming up in the spring, such as the Disability Walk, but currently they will be having in the weekend of March 13th, 14th, the Jets floor hockey will be taking place at Jefferson. And then I just also wanted to mention that Director Starks and I attended school board member training, which was very informative, Phase 1 and 2, and looking forward to attending Phase 3, as well as attending my first MSBA workshop, 2-day workshop, and went to several very informative workshops. That was a very exciting and fun part of school boarding. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Beebe?
Well, I think last time I had mentioned that I was able to visit our early childhood program over at the Pond Center and talked with the director, Gina. All of a sudden, Miller. Gracious gal, and has been really working hard to get students have their 3-year-old screenings and 4-year-old screenings so that they can be able to know how to bring interventions to those students and get them ready for kindergarten. And because they have been working harder at finding out where those students are, they are like so much further ahead. I mean, it's like twice as many students that they have already screened at this point than they have in the past. And I think that's really significant, and they deserve a shout out for that. They're working hard at getting into the community where we have language barriers. They've translated things into both Spanish and Somali, and working a lot more in trying to communicate with those communities. So that was very, very encouraging. Really enjoyed the MSBA convention. This time I didn't feel like I was drinking from a fire hose, like our 2 new members are, and could go to some of the workshops and, kind of dealt with some of the things that I need to be more educated in order to be an effective board member on certain, issues or concerns that have come up. So I really enjoyed that. And we also heard Alan November, who spoke about the technology and how that is coming. Like, do your kids know how to use Google, or do they really know how to use Google? And it showed us some very interesting trends with a new program that is sweeping right now within the universities. And I don't want to go into detail about it right now, but it was just one of those things where you sat back and you went, wow, how fast this has changed. Also, last week I was visiting paras at Jefferson and met some of our students over there, and they are part of the JETS program that Director Olson talked about. I asked them, so when's your next game? And they said, 4:30 today. And I said, I'll be there. And I had a great time talking with parents and how much they appreciate this program for their students and the impact it has for them to be able to participate in a sport. And you could see the camaraderie and the work that they were putting together. Also, we mentioned about the AMSD meeting that we went to. These are valuable organizations, and I think really keep us on the cutting edge. And that one was about vaping, and it was just so eye-opening. Kind of left a bit stunned at some of the facts that I learned, and I'm grateful that our program is really addressing that and being relevant about that. So, yeah, just enjoying being with my board members, and I have 2 new members on the Bloomington Student Advisory Committee. Our meeting tonight really focused in on questions they had about the budget and why things got cut, and what solutions they thought that they would like to see. And they may be at the meeting tomorrow night, being able to voice their concerns to our legislative members. So very lively group, and it took us a little trouble getting here on time, but we appreciate them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Director Steiger.
Yeah, I think at another meeting, Director Bennett mentioned that he visited a fax room, so him and I actually showed up by accident on the same day to the same fax room, so that was kind of interesting. But I enjoyed very much visiting and observing the classroom there. But then I also went back and visited the tech ed room in the same building, and so enjoyed, because it was just happened to be at a time that the students were working on a project, so I could go around the room and they could share projects with me. It wasn't like I was interrupting where they're sitting at their desk, so it was very nice that it worked out that I could visit during that time. I also just wanted to mention that I'm also still a member of the Advocacy Council that Director Stark mentioned, and so I just wanted to mention that the last meeting they also worked through, and Superintendent Fujitaki had many things that he has been working on also that he brought to the meeting, and worked through some of the possibilities for what legislation would be, so that we could also send those off to the legislative committee. The legislative committee will be meeting, and then we'll be bringing those back to the board at some time. But it was very informative from getting ideas from that whole group, and then having the superintendent share some of the things that he's also aware of going on and things that he's working on. So it was a very good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I also attended the AMSD meeting. I won't get into details, they have already been given. Also attended the first meeting of the Advocacy Council and the MSBA Leadership Conference. The leadership conference this year was quite different. You know, the speaker that they brought was definitely different. It was a different message. And so I truly appreciated that, as well as being able to attend the 4th gathering of school board members of color. So we had the African American Heritage, Latino Heritage, Asian Heritage, and Indigenous board members, directors in Minnesota. So it was really good to be part of that workshop. The presentation had a panel that talked about, well, the title of it was, "Is there a softer side of school safety? Exploration of new models of intervention for student-focused care." So that was a really good workshop, very, very valuable. And it was also good to see that and to welcome the new board members of color. And so we can see that the group continues to grow and grow from the first time that we met a number of years ago to what it looks like now. It's amazing to see the growth of more board members of color in Minnesota. Really looking forward to the legislative preview tomorrow with our legislators. And as Director Steigaff mentioned, the legislative committee will be meeting this Friday at 4 in the afternoon to talk about the priorities that we'll be bringing to the board for approval for our legislative platform. So that's all I have. Now we have superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you, Chair Corman. Administration requests a motion to establish a school board study session on Tuesday, February 18th at 7 p.m. Agenda topics to include start time study, facilities master planning, and board professional development.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any other business?
No, you gotta vote on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been distracted with the whole voting and the, yeah. Okay, so all those in favor of this motion to establish a meeting, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it passes.
Thank you. I have one more topic.
Okay,
Chair
go ahead.
Corman. This is the information for the public. This week, our elementary schools will begin hosting kindergarten registration events for families of incoming kindergartners for the 2021 school year. Please, parents, please check your respective attendance area schools for specific and dates and times for those events. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business? We know other business. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
Motion to
moved.
adjourn.
Was there a second?
Sure, second.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.